Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission on September 6, 2018. Let's begin with roll call.
Thank you, Commissioner Perot. Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Perot?
Here.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Yearsley?
Here.
And absent are Commissioners Fitzgerald and McCarville.
Thank you. Okay, the next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda: the approval of minutes of the August 16th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and findings of fact, conclusion of law for Zions Bank H20180077 by Matt Hutfield, located at 1767 West Island Green Drive.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So next, I'd like to explain the public hearing process, briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and then start with the staff report. The staff will report their findings regarding how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and uniform development code with their recommendations. After the staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case for the approval of their application and respond to any staff comments. The applicant will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open to public testimony. There's a sign-up sheet in the back as you entered for anyone wishing to testify. Any person wishing to testify will come forward and be allowed 3 minutes. If they are speaking for a larger group, like an HOA, there will be a show of hands to represent the group, and they will be given 10 minutes. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to have the opportunity to come back and respond if they choose to do so. After that, we will close the public hearing. The commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make a recommendation to City Council. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for, actually, prior to doing that, I'd like to just note that the public hearing for Raspberry Point Villa subdivision H20180072, that application has been withdrawn, and we won't be having a hearing on that this evening. Has anybody shown up for that, or?
We did not have sign-ins, but we did have several people here, and I did talk to people who I noticed were here for Raspberry Point, did notify them of that.
Okay.
We received the cancellation after we had noticed, so we were unable to withdraw that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Next, we will open the public hearing.
Madam Chair,
Excuse me.
do we not need to make a motion to accept the withdrawal?
No.
Okay.
It's my understanding that we don't.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. All right. We will now open the public hearing for a residential district naming convention text amendment by Devco Development, and it's my understanding they would like to continue. So can I get a motion to continue to October 4th?
Madam Chair, I move to continue public hearing of residential district naming file convention text amendment, file number H2018-0059 to October 4th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you. At this time, it has been moved and seconded to continue to October 4th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we have the public hearing for EEG Office Building H20180081. And I understand this afternoon they also made a motion to continue, or request, excuse me, to continue to September 20th. So can I get a motion for that continuance?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
I move to continue EEG Office Building H-2018-0081 to the date of September 20th, 2018.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to continue H20180081 to September 20th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the public hearing for Fire Station Number 6, H20180083, My Meridian Fire Department. And we will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The first application before you tonight is a request for a conditional use permit. This site consists of 1.67 acres of land. It's zoned R8 and located at 1435 West Overland Road. Adjacent land use and zoning to the north is West Overland Road and an RV dealership zoned IL. To the west is vacant land zoned RUT in Ada County. To the south are apartments that are currently in the development process, zoned R15. And to the east are single-family residential, is a single-family residential use, and the Boise Party Barn, zoned R8. This property was annexed earlier this year. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is medium-density residential. A conditional use permit is requested for a 13,000 square foot excuse me, I have a wrong text here. A fire station, no, actually it is, excuse me, 13,000 square foot public, quasi-public use fire station in the R8 district to include an apparatus bay, living quarters for staff, and offices. The fire station is proposed to be constructed in 2 phases, with the first phase consisting of a 10,700 square foot fire station with 2 apparatus bays, work areas, living quarters, and offices. The second phase will consist of a 2,300 square foot addition with an additional apparatus bay, battalion chief suite, and 2 additional sleeping rooms. The site plan depicts how the site is proposed to develop with 2 accesses via West Overland Road. The eastern driveway will provide access to the parking area for the public and employees and access to the enclosed apparatus bays. And the western driveway will provide for emergency vehicle departure via Overland Road. A landscape street buffer and parking lot landscaping is required as proposed. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the future fire station as shown. One without the future addition and one with the addition. The proposed building is a single story in height, and building materials consist of CMU masonry walls with a mix of texture with banding, aluminum storefront, and metal panel system with glazing. The future structure is required to comply with the standards listed in the UDC and the Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony has been received from Gunnar Gladix, the applicant's representative. He is in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the report. Staff will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sonia. Are there any questions the commissioners have for staff? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Matthew Adams, 462 East Shore Drive, Suite 100, Eagle, Idaho. And I'm here on behalf of the architect to answer any questions if you have them. But as Sonia stated, we're in agreement with the staff report and look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant, commissioners? Okay. At this time, we'd like to take public testimony. Is there anybody here to testify or to give testimony?
Madam Chair, we had 1 sign-in, Matthew Adams.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. No additional sign-ins.
Okay, well, it doesn't sound like the applicant has anything additional to add. So at this time, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wilson?
I move to close H-2018-0083, Fire Station Number 6.
Second. It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Yearsley.
you know, it's kind of hard to not like a fire station.
It's a good-looking one.
And it does, it looks really nice, and I think it's a good area. It's needed probably in that area to keep the service up, so I am in favor of this application.
I would have to agree, and I think, didn't we dealt with the access to this a few months ago, didn't we, on this one? So
Yeah.
I like the design. It's kind of cool looking.
I would agree. I don't have any concerns. Looks like they've got a pretty nice plan put together.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend to approval to City Council of file number H-2018-0083.
Second?
So this is actually a conditional use permit,
It is.
aren't we recommending?
Did I read-
approval? It should be
Okay, just
to approve.
I just read it verbatim. Yeah, that's right. So let's do that again.
Okay.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2018-0083 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of September 6, 2018.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing for Owyhee High School, H20180075 by West Ada School District.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the next application before you is a request for annexation and zoning and a conditional use permit. This site consists of 109 acres of land zoned RUT in Ada County, located west of North McDermott Road on the north side of West Ustick Road at 7020 West Ustick Road. Adjacent land uses and zoning to the north is rural residential agricultural property zoned RUT in Ada County. To the east is North McDermott Road and rural residential agricultural property zoned RUT in Ada County. To the south is West Ustick Road, rural residential and agricultural property in Canyon County. And to the west is rural residential agricultural property zoned RUT in Ada County. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation for this site is medium density residential. The school site is designated on the future land use map in this general area. The applicant is requesting approval to annex and zone a total of 108.76 acres of land consisting of 3 parcels from the RUT zoning district in Ada County to the R8 zoning district in the city, consistent with the medium-density residential future land use map designation. A conditional use permit is also requested for the following: an education institution in an R8 zoning district, lighted fields, and an outdoor speaker system adjoining and within a residential district, the generation of vehicle trips per day in excess of 1,500, and access proposed from a collector street, and there is not safe, separate pedestrian and bikeway access between the neighborhood and the school site, in accord with UDC Table 11-2A-2 and the specific use standards listed in 11-4-3-14 Education Institution. A conceptual development plan was submitted as shown that demonstrates how the overall site is proposed to develop with a 246,390 square foot high school to serve 1,800 students on approximately 66 acres of land in the central portion of the site, with 15.7 acres reserved for a future elementary school at the north end. I'm going to just flip back here to this map. If you can see my pointer here, that's where the elementary school is proposed. And then future residential uses are proposed on the 11.6 acres at the south end of the site and 15.43 acres on the east side of the site, the Spriggle parcel. A conceptual development plan was not submitted as requested by staff for the future residential areas, including the Spriggle parcel that serves as the annexation path for the development. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the high school as shown. The structure is proposed to be divided between 1 and 2 stories, and building materials are proposed to consist of integral colored structural CMU and CMU veneer in smooth and split face finish with pre-finished metal panel accent panels. The roof is low slope membrane roofing concealed by a combination of parapet walls and mansard roof finished with standing seam metal roofing. Written testimony was received from Jeffrey Wardle, Spink Butler, Mark Freeman from Foley Freeman, and Gerald Flower. This application has been a really tough one for staff. Schools are very much needed in the North Meridian area. Rocky Mountain is quite a bit over capacity right now. However, staff is recommending denial of this application, and I'll just go through those reasons now for you, primarily for life safety reasons. The fire and police department do not support a single public access to the site as proposed for life safety reasons due to the size of the project, anticipated occupancy of the high school and future elementary school, traffic generated from sporting events, and the need for traffic to be able to enter and leave the site efficiently and quickly, especially in the event of an emergency. In an emergency situation, the single access could be blocked and there would be no other way in or out of the site. The fire department cannot meet response time requirements for this development without another fire station being constructed closer to the site. Ada County EMS would also have extended response times to this site. Current resources would not be adequate to supply service to this project. The police department response times to this site are estimated to be beyond the average response times recorded by Ada County. To mitigate the extended response time, an SRO officer and office would need to be provided at the school. Safe pedestrian and bicycle access to the school site does not exist because this property is in a rural area and there are no sidewalks. Inclusion of the Spriggle parcel within the annexation boundary solely for the purpose of providing an annexation path for the school without that parcel being part of the development application promotes leapfrog development and creates sprawl, which isn't good planning and doesn't allow for efficient provision of city services and infrastructure to be constructed. It also creates a Swiss cheese issue for the police department, and that only the north half of Ustick and the west half of McDermott Road would be in the city, and that's just where the project touches these streets. And the surrounding roadway would be in the county, which would require the Ada County Sheriff's Department to service the unincorporated land and roadway in between. There is approximately, I'm going to flip to a different map here, there is approximately 2,500 acres west of 10 Mile Road to McDermott Road, north of I-84, that is yet to be annexed into the city and developed. The city annexed parcels are shown there in color. The county is in white. Providing city services to this property is not an efficient provision of services and creates confusion on service boundaries. No other properties have been annexed on the west side of McDermott Road. In fact, a project to the north of this site, Copperbrook subdivision, was denied a couple of years ago based on council's decision that it was not in the best interest of the city to annex the property at that time based on comments from the public hearings. Reasons for denial discussed at the hearing were that the council wanted the city to develop from the inside out rather than the outside in, and the concern that stretching city services out west of McDermott would take away services to existing residents and open up another square mile for development. Nothing in this area has changed since that time, except that many more developments have been approved and developed within the city that further impact the provision of city services. Annexation of the school site would stretch services even further. Because the school site doesn't extend all the way south to West Ustick Road and east to North McDermott Road, street buffer landscaping and sidewalks are not proposed along these arterial streets. Additionally, because the elementary school is not proposed to develop at this time, the north-south collector street is not proposed to extend to the north boundary, which would create a gap in the collector street if the property to the north of the annexation area develops. Annexation of the subject property would create a domino effect for adjacent properties to request annexation and further the sprawl and Swiss cheese issue experienced by the police department when responding to calls. The city is currently receiving inquiries from parties interested in developing land in the area west of McDermott near the school site. The applicant's conceptual development plan does not contemplate ITD's local street access plan for the properties that currently have access via McDermott Road that will be impacted by the extension of State Highway 16. While staff recognizes another high school is very much needed in North Meridian, as I stated previously, staff does not feel it's in the best interest of the city to annex this property for development at this time. At some point in the future, when the city boundaries expand more fully to this area, it would be logical to annex and develop a school on this site. But with the life safety issues noted by the police and fire departments, staff does not feel it's in the best interest of the city to annex the property at this time and recommends denial. Staff will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sonia. Are there any questions for staff? Okay. And I'd like to point out to the commissioners that we do have representatives here from Meridian Police Department and Meridian Fire Department, if commissioners have any questions for these gentlemen this evening. Would the applicant like to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is, Eric Exline, Chief Communication Officer for the West Ada School District. Our offices are located at 1303 East Central Drive in Meridian.
I'm Matthew Adams with the Land Group, and I'm at 462 East Shore Drive, Suite 100, Eagle, Idaho. This is going to be a team presentation. I actually signed in as well, but it was just so you know I'd be speaking tonight. In addition to my role as the Chief Communication Officer, I'm also responsible for facilitating the committee that develops bond proposals to build new schools, and also the committee that develops the attendance areas for them, so I'm fairly familiar with the process of location of schools and how to adequately address over-enrollment. I will speak to the timely, orderly, and logical expansion of the infrastructure and services proposed with the construction of Hawaii High School, located near the intersection of Eustic and McDermott Roads. And I would start with the need for new school infrastructure occurs regularly in West Ada when the economy is strong and residential construction is progressing at a healthy rate. West Ada had supermajority support for school bonds in 1996, 98, 2000, 2002, 2005, and then after the recession in 2015 and 2018. The regular need for bonds is the result of student enrollment that has increased by 950 students on average per year since 1998. In the case of the 2018 bond that received 67.3% support by voters, West Ada now has the authority to sell bonds for the construction of Hawaii High School, along with several other large capital projects. The process that led to the decision to include Hawaii High School in the proposal included parent and district administrators representing all West Ada schools. The challenge faced by the committee was how to alleviate overcrowding at Eagle High School, which is currently 271 students over capacity, Rocky Mountain High School, which is 639 students over capacity, Mountain View High School, which is 495 students over capacity, and find a location that would accommodate the 8,781 approved home sites in the Meridian attendance area and the more than 14,000 approved home sites across West Ada. And I would note that those home sites in Meridian's attendance area alone will generate 2,000 future high school kids that will fill an entire high school. They're just in the pipeline. So the committee looked at 3 school sites owned by the district, one in Star, one in the west central part of the school district, and one south of I-84. The members concluded that one high school could not solve the overcrowding at all 3 schools that are over capacity and also absorb the future growth potential. The committee concluded that the high school site south of I-84 would not be able to reduce the overcrowding at 2 schools north of the interstate, that the site did not have viable water or sewer access, and building at that location would result in 2 under-enrolled high schools south of I-84 while leaving 3 overcrowded high schools north of the freeway. The site in Star, while ready to build in regards to sewer and water, was determined to be too distant from the large concentrations of students where the most severe overcrowding is occurring.
In a nearly unanimous decision-making process, the committee's solution to these problems to provide the necessary infrastructure in a timely, orderly, and most importantly, logical manner was to build a new high school on the McDermott and Usick site and also to expand Mountain View to accommodate the current enrollment at that school. The proposed Owyhee High School at the location proposed will allow the West Ada School District to operate that school along with Eagle High School, Rocky Mountain High School, and Meridian High School with enrollment numbers below these schools' design capacity, and will allow the district to operate these schools for approximately 4 to 5 years before the next high school is needed. Because of the severe and worsening overcrowding at several of our current schools, the timing of the completion of this project is critical. And I would note each of those schools' enrollments this year, Eagle High School's enrollment increased by about 100 students, Rocky Mountain's increased by about 70, Mountain View, luckily for us, remained flat, and Meridian High's increased by about 100 from the end of last school year. Finally, I asked the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission consider 2 statements in the City of Meridian Comprehensive Plan regarding educational facilities. First, from page 34, in reference to the MUI area of Ustick Road west of SH16, quote, examples of uses include middle or high schools. And further from that page, the following types of appropriate uses and themes are envisioned at the 2 interchange locations along SH16, Ustick Road, educational, civic, light retail, residential. And second, from the same document's goals, objectives, action items 3.02.01G, quote, look for ways to streamline the permitting and land use review process for approval of new school facilities. We will be lucky to get the school open by 2020, and the overcrowding at all of those schools I mentioned is only going to worsen. Ladies and gentlemen from the Commission, I thank you for your time. I turn the remainder of our time over to Matt Adams with the Land Group.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to go fast. 9 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. Pedestrian access. I'm going to try to hit all the points Sonia brought up so that you can have a clear understanding of our approach. Idaho Code 67-6519, parenthesis 3, requires that we study pedestrian access and school busing at every school. We did that. We had a traffic engineer study that, and from our traffic impact study, which was part of our application to ACHD, I will read from page 50. Due to the rural nature of the school, busing will be provided for all children. The school district will provide 14 to 16 buses for the high school. The bus staging and loading area has been designed to accommodate 16 bus vehicles at one time if needed. West Ada School District will bus students to the school regardless of their proximity due to the safety concerns, and that is exactly what they do at Star Middle School at this time. So there is a precedent that they do that. Pedestrian safety from our impact study, traffic impact study, page 51 and 52. On-site pedestrian circulation, this is from the study. Thoughtful plan with attention to safety and function as primary objective. Off-site pedestrian accessibility, quote, due to the lack of sidewalks, the school district will provide safety busing for all students attending the new high school. As sections of the sidewalks are developed, or alternatives, such as pathways through private property, are developed, busing to certain areas could be reduced. This is not a unique situation. I live on Locust Grove. There are not sidewalks the entire way. There are not sidewalks near Ambrose School. Kids cross Chinden at that location. Busing is what will be provided. Students may choose not to accept that, and they may drive to the site. We do have a collector on our west edge, goes from Ustick to the north edge of our property with a cul-de-sac turnaround for safety vehicles, or for fire and service vehicles. The collector at the mid-mile that goes east-west does go across the entire property. It was mislabeled as a local road. It is a collector and meets the requirements that ACHD has set forth. We are providing sidewalks on both of those roadways, as well as along our Ustick frontage to meet the requirements of ACHD. We are unable to build sidewalks beyond that on parcels of land that we do not control. That's why we want to do the safety busing. Sonia, could you open the emergency services plan? Emergency services. School is one of the safest places for an American child. There is no question. All data, all research backs that up. So the kids are safe when they are at this facility, safer than at home. West Ada School District takes the safety of students seriously in everything they do, including the planning of facilities and the operation of those facilities. West Ada School District intends to have a student resource officer, an SRO, on site. Our current building design has a dedicated SRO office. The proposed development provides access, so that's to cover police concerns. There will be an SRO. Our proposed development provides access from Ustick Road, as noted by staff, and the proposed mid-mile collector, and there is a connection to McDermott Road via the sewer and water access drive that takes you out, shown in purple on this plan. This plan that's in front of you right now shows existing public roadways in green, proposed ACHD public roadways in blue, on-site fire access lanes in the cyan color, so you can see we're well covered on site. And then we have the purple and all-weather fire access lane that doubles as the sewer and water maintenance driveway. So there is 2 access points that are on opposite corners of the site. Meridian Fire Station number 2, located at 10 Mile Road between Ustick and Cherry, is approximately 2.9 miles from this site. And I am not a fire professional, but I did a Google Maps on it, and it said it was a 5-minute drive time. That, I don't know how much traffic that takes into account, things like that. Ada County EMS Station is located at 10 Mile Road in Ustick, which is approximately 1/2 mile further, so 3.4 miles from this site. Another item that we want to address is the State Highway 16 comments. So, Sonia, if you could open the infrastructure and access plan, please. So we have a neighbor to the east of us, several neighbors, and West Ada, we've worked very hard to accommodate and have a good relationship and promote the school with all these neighbors. This neighbor has asked that due to the potential that the Highway 16 project will limit their access, they've asked that we construct a roadway to their property. We take this condition very seriously and the needs of our neighbors very seriously. We are not in agreement with the requirement in the staff report that West Ada School District construct the roadway. West Ada School District has offered to the neighbor, Woodside Avenue Investor LLC, a dedicated easement from the north-south collector to the Flowers parcel. This easement is south of the school site, located on the north edge of the south parcel, indicated to be future residential. The developer of Woodside parcel can construct within this easement and work with Flowers to make the required connection when that roadway becomes necessary. Our project does not create the need for that roadway. The Woodside development has access today to Ustick and McDermott, and we do not control the Flowers parcel and are unable to complete that access. So you can see keynote 4 on the plan in front of you. That'd be the easement we could provide at no cost, and then 5 is where Woodside and Flowers would need to negotiate to complete that connection. Sonia, could you open the pathways plan? So there was a comment from Parks Department, comment 6.4. It stated project developer, well, there's 2 comments. One, they would like us to construct a multi-use pathway on the south edge of the site. We have proposed to do that. We think that's an excellent idea, and it's on the ditch alignment. They have asked us to construct a 10-foot wide multi-use pathway on the north-south collector. This pathway, we do not agree with this requirement. That connection is not shown on the pathways master plan. So our proposal is to provide an 8-foot wide detached concrete sidewalk on that alignment. And then we do have a land use plan for this Briggle parcel. If you'd like it, we misunderstood. We thought we were told not to include it. We do have it available, and we can provide it to you this evening so that you have that. This is that Parks Master Plan. The blue square is our site, and you can see the green line that goes through it. We are complying with that. We do not see anything on the master plan for the north-south connection. Finally, I want to address the Swiss cheese development comments. Staff has indicated that the approval of the application would cause a Swiss cheese issue for the Meridian Police Department. For example, that they would have parcels which are inside of the city and others which are nearby that would remain served by the county sheriff. The commission is well aware of the way annexation occurs in the city. City limits don't happen in straight lines. The map that Sonia provided that indicated the county area versus city to show how much is available from 10 Mile West, clearly there is a irregular form to the city boundary. As annexation occurs, there are always jogs and bumps in the areas that police and fire are required to serve. This is not any different. If you choose, I would also like to indicate that one more thing on the State Highway 16 issue. Sorry to jump back to that.
If you would wrap up your comments, we're about out of time.
Thank you. Last comment. The Woodside parcel currently does have frontage on Ustick and McDermott. As development occurs in this area, the city will have the ability to require streets and connectivity to that parcel. There is no application from that parcel before you tonight. Our application does not impact their access tonight. We have offered a solution to them and have not been able to come to an agreement. They declined our solution of an easement. They countered with, they want us to construct and pay for 90% of that roadway. That was not acceptable to us. That roadway has no benefit to the West Ada School District, and therefore we think it solely benefits that property owner. They should carry the full cost of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant and the commissioners? Commissioner Yearsley?
Madam Chair. So the one issue that I don't think has been addressed is, I think with the fire department, you have a secondary access for fire, but we don't have a secondary access for individuals to get out if there's a problem at the entrance of that collector road to get out. How do we want to address that? How are we going to address that issue? Because certainly, to me, that is a huge concern if there is an accident or a fire at that intersection and no one could get out.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, our secondary access point is that sewer and water drive. It will be improved. It's a drivable surface, and it is available. The anticipation, if we could, we would construct roads everywhere out here, but we can't do that. So we will rely on the roadways that ACHD has identified are required to provide an adequate level of service for our facility. And we need to, I guess, just rely on the fact that the public roadways are designed per the standards that are required. And right now there are no other developments providing roadways to the north or the east.
So the follow-on question, are we planning a light at that intersection at this point, or what's the plan?
Intersection of Ustick and our collector?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that addresses ACHD. Yesterday we presented ACHD, and the outcome of that meeting was that we are required to construct the collector as shown. We're required to improve the Ustick frontage. We're required to create turn lanes on Ustick at McDermott. We're required to do an interim signal at our collector in Ustick. So we will improve that intersection to be signalized. We're required to do a signalization at Star Ustick and signalization at Star and McMillan. So that intersection will be improved.
So you did a traffic study. What was the level of service at that intersection? Do you remember what that is?
That, and again, we're talking about the collector and U-Stick.
Yep.
Direct to the site. The level of service per the traffic impact study operated at an acceptable level with simply a stop control on the collector. So we took a look at that. The West Ada school district took a look and said, we're not comfortable with that people turning left out of this site at a stop control onto 50-mile-an-hour U-Stick. The district wants to, and it is warranted, not required, but it is warranted to do a signal there. So we're above and beyond acceptable level of service once we do the signal. Ultimately, Nampa Highway District will require a roundabout at that location. However, it's not warranted at this time, and ACHD and Nampa Highway do not have funding to construct it. It's in the 2031 CIP.
I have a question for you. What happens with that access off of McDermott when 16 comes through?
When Highway 16 comes through, it would interrupt that sewer access. At that time, I don't know, but at that time, knowing how far out they are with their development plan of that roadway, I would anticipate we would see this area fully developed with housing and roadways. Okay. It would be reasonable to condition that if that were to be interrupted, we would need to create a secondary access to replace that.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli.
I have a question actually for Mr. Exline. Thank you for coming back up. Were there other parcels that West Ada owns in the area that were considered for the high school?
We do not own any other. We did consider a parcel that was about a half-mile away on the east side as we were looking for land, knowing that we were going to need a high school in this area to serve for future growth. The choice that we had was to purchase a 50-acre parcel about a half mile to the east for $100,000 an acre or $5 million, or to purchase 90 acres on the other side of McDermott for $27,000 an acre and have property that would serve 2 school facilities. From a taxpayer standpoint, it was difficult to justify the difference in the expense in relation to the relatively short amount of distance. But that is the parcel that we own. We do not own another high school site in that area.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a couple of questions for you as well. Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Sure,
where is the end of the boundary for West Ada School District? Is it actually at the county line, or where is that boundary?
Commissioner Peralt and Commissioner Yearsley, it largely is Canada Road. Oddly, there's a couple very small pieces of land north of this site where it crosses Canada Road. And I've been around a long time, and I can't tell you the history of how that happened in 1950. And we do have 2 square miles of our district that are actually part of Canyon County, where the cheese factory is. That's actually in West Ada. Thus, our actual legal name is Joint School District Number 2, and the joint refers to the fact that we cross 2 county lines or combine 2 counties.
It's my understanding that West Ada also owns this approximately 12 acres on U-Stick Road. What's the future plan for that, and why not move the high school closer to U-Stick Road?
You answer the why not move closer.
Thank you, Commissioner. That area, as we looked at development, there were 2 things that impacted us and our schedule to construct. One was the operation of the dairy and the timing of when the lease could end and when that dairy operator could move off. Okay. We also looked at the geographic features, the ditches. If we were to slide south that the Sky Pilot Drain, or sometimes known as the Settlers Drain, would have bisected nearly through our building the way the site plan wanted to work out. So as we evaluated that, we determined that it was best to shift it north and move it off. We also think we have better circulation if we're further from the intersection. And then finally, we felt that the district had an opportunity in the future to sell that parcel and to recoup some of the costs of this land purchase.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Follow-up question to your first question. Would the dairy still be operational when the school was built out?
Good question, Commissioner. No, at this time, the district has notified that operator that the lease will be terminated, and they're just working through the process of finding a relocation site. The lease indicated that they had a 12-month period to make their move, so we're honoring that agreement. I know they're looking, they've identified some sites, but at this time, they have not begun any kind of move. Once we're open, the dairy will not be operating there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we would like to take public testimony. Do we have a list?
Madam Chair, you had 7 people sign in. First was, and I apologize for mispronunciations, Ed Klopfenstein.
Please state your name and address for the record, and each individual has 3 minutes for their testimony.
Thank you very much, Madam. My name is Ed Klopfenstein, 1786 West Santa Clara Drive in Meridian, and I'm on the West Ada School Board, but tonight I'm speaking as a parent and as a community member. So the idea is cause and effect. Harming the education of kids is obviously not the effect the board wants tonight, but that's the effect a no vote will have. With a no tonight and later a no by the council, assuming they would vote no, the district will most likely have to delay construction of Hawaii High School by 1 year, which means that kids from Rocky and Elsewhere will have to be bused to Meridian High School in the interim, which means that Meridian will reach capacity earlier than expected, which means higher class sizes and impact on families, which means more difficult learning environment, which means more money and more unintended consequences, which means more delays, more issues. It's a domino effect. We think we all can agree on that. However, there are also 2 other domino effects that a no vote may bring that you may not have thought of. And one is a no vote tonight could mean the perception that schools no longer have priority status in planning decisions by the city. Remember that the current comp plan lists as number 4, prevent school overcrowding and enhance educational services. The district banked on that, but the district would have to believe that things have changed. The perception may be that the district is just another developer. The district is not just another developer. This is a community partner trying to handle the growth that was approved by this board. Number 2, a no vote by this board tonight, and again later possibly by the council, may send the message that the district needs to be very careful in selling the land that it had already purchased and is already rezoned, and therefore losing a tool to rezone cheaper property. Buying and selling land allows the district to respond very early in the planning process because developers are not required to gift school property for their new developments. To get schools close enough to the kids and to afford cheaper property, the district has to invest in property near planned developments as early in the planning process as possible. Should a planned development fail, they need to sell quickly so they can invest elsewhere. If the district is not a priority in planning, then which a no vote would tell them this, then they will second guess selling the land they currently have, as cheaper replacements already zoned will be hard to find. This may force the district to rely on more expensive busing options and lose a valuable tool that has been the cornerstone in developing new properties for years. A no vote tonight has a real human consequence and unforeseen consequences to the growth that this board is trying to manage. I would respectfully ask that the board vote yes tonight and put kids first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Next, you have David Ferdinand.
Again, please state your name and address for the record.
As Commissioners, David Ferdinand. I reside at 2419 West Heron Loop in Nampa, and I represent my clients who reside at 4343 Ustick Road, directly across the street. Listening to the presentation, I think we need to go back to 1892 when, I think that's a great time. 1892 is when Canyon County became Canyon County out of Ada County. We have some concerns for the Nampa impact area being in the West Ada School District. And so they're uniquely situated with their 76 acres of ag ground, and there are 4 home parcels directly across the street. The Nampa impact area shows that area as future planning for commercial. And my clients are concerned with Highway 16, and so our question really is how does that area, how are they impacted when the Highway 16 division comes through and cuts across the property? It would actually, in fact, is if you could put up that Highway 16, Ms. Allen, if you can put that up there, you can see exactly where if you can see the corner of right across the street from the designated area where the school will be, yes, that parcel right there is the Baum property. And so I guess our question is infrastructure, how are these areas going to be developed, especially for transportation issues, especially with the Highway 16 development that's going to go through, and then the concern for what it's going to do for that neighborhood. I listed myself as neutral because we're here to find out more information as to how this will impact the rest of the West Ada School District that is in Canyon County. And if this body would feel so, we'd love to see the area across the street annexed into the city of Meridian when you have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next sign in was Matthew Adams, but we'll skip to Jeff Wardle.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, Sonia, is my PowerPoint there?
Sir, please state your name and address for the record.
Jeffrey Wardle, my address is 251 East Front Street, Boise. I'm counsel for Boise Hunter Homes and Woodside Avenue Investors. And I recognize we're on a time limit. We are the most impacted property owner. We have included a variety of comments, and we have had extensive discussions, and I would request the ability to go a little bit longer than our 3 minutes because I think we can help address these issues. First and foremost, we are not here because we oppose this school. I am a Rocky parent. I voted for this bond. My clients have a presence in this community. We support it. Why we're here is due to the fact that we believe the City of Meridian, Idaho Transportation Department, West Ada School District, and ACHD need to address the totality of the impacts that this is going to have on adjoining property owners. As you can see in the map, Boise Hunter Homes owns the 40 acres that is at the northwest corner of McDermott and Ustick. We have engaged the school district from the beginning because of the fact that our property will be bisected by Highway 16. Our property, over 40% of our property will be taken, and we are bounded entirely on the west by the West Ada School District and the remnant of the Flowers parcel. That's why we have been so concerned about access. We communicated this early on because we recognize that ACHD's policies encourage connectivity, and that's what we're seeking to do. My client purchased this property 11 years ago, long before ITD came forward with their plan. And once ITD came forward with their plan, this is where the Meridian City Code comes into play. What we are asking for is preserve the connectivity, ensure the connectivity, and let's address it now. Otherwise, the school district's plan, while Mr. Adams says, oh, it doesn't affect Boise Hunter Homes property, once Highway 16 is taken, once that right-of-way is not preserved, once those other issues are not addressed, it imposes a greater impact on the private property there in the future. Meridian City Code recognizes, and we appreciate the staff's comments, and we support the staff's request, because your code encourages connectivity in this area through backage roads and through alignments to provide that access. Indeed, that's what the Idaho Transportation Department requested in their August 24th, 2018 letter, that adequate right-of-way be preserved to ensure access to those parcels that are going to be cut off from the collector because of both the location of the school district and Highway 16. We have proposed 3 options, and this is what we raised with ACHD. First, this planned local road is what is in ITD's plan. The issue here, as we think about what happens, there will be a highway interchange at this location. And if I can just have 2 minutes more, because we obviously are a very significant property owner, and we have a solution. So, the first solution was to preserve the right-of-way along the eastern side of the school site. That's what's in your staff report. That's consistent with ITD's plan. The second thing that we had proposed was essentially a backage road. Now, I disagree with Mr. Adams. I appreciate his work on this, but the notion that this road doesn't benefit the school district is erroneous. As a practical matter, based upon ACHD's policy manual and based upon the requirements that will be imposed at this intersection when it is constructed, the only access for that southern piece of surplus the school district has will be back to the collector. They will not get direct access onto Ustick Road. If they weren't able to address the issue with the flowers, then we provided that solution. But we also believe the school district needs to address the fact that it doesn't do any good to provide an easement over Nampa Meridian irrigation facilities. So we had proposed cost sharing, and this is why we had proposed it. And the West Ada School District rejected it, and they said, you're demanding that we spend 90%. No, we suggested they pay for 80% of the cost, and that Flowers and Boise Hunter Homes pay the other 20%. The reason why is when you have surplus that's left, this is a facility that the West Ada School District or their successor is going to have to build. We think it's an appropriate allocation. If it's not, we're open to negotiation. The final thing is we recognize the staff report talks about sewer, and this goes to the larger infrastructure issue. When we look at this site and we look at this area, there needs to be collaboration amongst all the property owners, and with West Ada being the first one to come in with an application for development, they need to take the lead. The policy manual for your Public Works Department contemplates this joint service. We've contemplated that. We've had discussions. We believe, based upon what the West Ada School District's communicated, that there probably is the ability to have some shared sewer access. And with that, I'd stand for any questions you have.
Commissioners, any questions? No questions. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, you have Mark Freeman.
Good evening. My name is Mark Freeman.
Please speak into the microphone.
Sorry. My name is Mark Freeman. I am counsel for the West Ada School District. My address is 3103 South Westbury Way in Eagle. I signed up because I'm part of the school district's team, and I may need to respond during the rebuttal.
Okay.
And so I don't have any further testimony at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next was Troy Crookston, who indicated he did not wish to testify. And then Eric Thies.
Good evening. My name is Eric Thies. My address is 2064 East Meadowood Drive in Meridian, Idaho. I'm also the president of the West Ada Education Association. We worked very hard and very closely with the district in order to get this bond through, in order to provide this school for our students. And we need this school for our students. And I think I can echo everything that everybody said tonight about the need and the overcrowding and the importance of infrastructure. But I also want to put out there that the community has spoken very loudly that they need and want a school in this area. The land areas that are available south of the interstate simply won't serve the communities that are growing and being annexed and being developed in the northwest portion of Meridian. And we need a school in that area. I've also taught at Rocky Mountain for 10 years, and I've seen them go from undercrowded the first year they were open because there was just freshmen and sophomore there, to needing more and more portables in order to teach students in. And that's not a great way to teach. It's not a great way to learn. It's not a great thing to provide our students. What our students deserve is schools. And this location, this part of town, is the part where they need it. The community spoke very loudly by passing this bond that they want the school. We need to allow them to have it, and to postpone it a year so that we can find a better location, which may or may not be available, is not good for the students that we have. That's about all I got, without repeating what other people have already said. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
There were no additional sign-ins.
Okay. Is there anybody else here that would like to come up and testify? Okay. Come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Gwen Baum. Can you hear me okay?
Speak into the microphone very loudly. There you go.
Okay. I'm Gwen Baum. We have the 80 across the street from the proposed school site. And I didn't know that...
what is your address, ma'am?
Address 4343 Eustic.
Thank you.
I didn't know that our land was in Ada County back in 1892, but I do know it was in Ada County in the late 80s and in the 90s. And I don't know why we've been jerked back and forth, but I sure would like to see us back in Ada County, because it is hard to get service there, like from the fire department, the police department, and when there's a wreck on the road, it's like, which side of the road is the wreck on, and what have you. And I have to give all the information, and then I finally have to say, the person is injured, you need to come out. And anyway, and the last wreck was on the Canyon County side, and the body ended up on the Ada County side. And the wreck before that, it was a truck on the Canyon County, and the car came from the Ada County dairy. So anyway, but beside the point, we love the idea. We would like to be a part of it. We never knew anything about it because we're in Canyon County, so we never knew anything about it till we read it in the paper that that bond was passed. And neither do we know anything about the new project just within a half mile of us that Canyon County's putting in for building homes. And we don't hear anything from Canyon County. We don't hear anything from Ada County because we're kind of a stepchild, 80 acres. So I would like everybody to consider us to be absorbed back into Ada County. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, please come forward.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jim Hunter with Boise Hunter Homes, and our address is 729 South Bridgeway, Eagle, Idaho. We own the piece, obviously, that's adjacent to the school district and being bisected by the north-south extension of 16, the future of 16. And so we just wanted to, in all the projects we have in the city of Meridian, we're always requested and required to extend roads to the neighboring properties. We do it at Sky Mesa. Whether they're competitors or not, we extend roads to them and build them and improve them. It's a policy that ACHD has adopted and required over the years. And we're just asking for reciprocity. In fact, we thought we went over by suggesting us and a neighbor should pay for 20% of it. We'll end up with a fraction of our original property. It'll only be 15 acres. It'll be isolated by Idaho 16, sandwiched between them and the school. And in these initial layouts, there just wasn't any consideration of that given at all. So we like schools, we support schools, and we know we generate kids. So, but we just want to be done properly and get the same treatment that we're requested to give to others. That's my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I actually have a question. Was there, West Ada had, on the south side of their parcel, future residential development along U-Stick. Did you ever talk with them about any kind of a land swap with part of your parcel so that they could get another access point in?
Yes, sir, we did. We suggested we would consider a land swap. They said they're not interested, and we suggested they could build their elementary school literally on our project, and they said they weren't interested. So we got a flat-out rejection of every proposal and no counter proposals.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other. Sorry. Oh, okay. Come forward, please.
Hi, my name is Paul Moore. I live at 3864 North Anada Avenue. It's in the Bolano Creek subdivision. So I'm just here as a parent. I'm kind of underdressed. I'm not really dressed to stand in front of a government body, but I just wanted to register as a concerned parent the desire and interest in getting this school in place. My children are currently at Sawtooth Middle School and Hunter Elementary, and they're both fairly crowded schools. And I actually grew up here in Meridian. That's kind of a rarity nowadays, but I was one that benefited from possibly some of this Swiss cheese type development, and I would just register my personal thoughts that it's worth it, that we're going to grow into that direction eventually, and that's it.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Mike Wheatonay. I'm actually a West Ada School Board trustee, but I'm speaking as a citizen for my concerns over this annexation process. I'd just like to let you know that
Sir, please state your address for the record.
2235 Southeast 5th Way. And as far as the Swiss cheese goes, I've been an appraiser for the last 30 years. And I believe that Swiss cheese growth happened around the racetrack at one point in time. We are in a huge growth pattern here, and it's going to escalate with 10 Mile and 16. And so the reason for picking that spot there was a couple of reasons. One of them, it was the best spot to serve north and south. The other one was that we're responsible for taxpayer money. We have to find the best possible prices for land. And we happened to come across this particular piece of property, which actually fit our criteria, actually fit our needs. We had to spend our taxpayer money wisely. It was a very, very good buy, as it would serve an elementary school and a high school, or whatever we needed. So I would just like to say that I think the process that we're talking about here, we probably will be back in a year or two or three, and we'll be getting annexed. So I just want you to think about that. Our future is growing quickly. We're expanding. Our schools are overcrowded. We will repeat the process in 2 or 3 years anyway. I believe we will eventually grow all the way to that line. And if we look forward from here, we'll look back and say, this was the best possible scenario for our students, our kids, and our community, because it's in the right place. Although right now it doesn't seem to be, I would just say to you that within 2 to 3, 5 years, it is and will be. So hope that you can consider that. So we don't have to come back and be delayed. The delay is not a small thing. It's a very, very big issue for us. I've been a trustee for 18 years, and I've never had to come to testify. So this is important. Needless to say, I'm concerned. I rather would use the word kind of freaking out because we are in a very, very difficult situation right now, and we need all the support and collaboration we can get from our public entities. And we hope that you'll look just a few years down the road and say, we're going to do this anyway. It's the right place. We need to let them build and not hold them up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If no one else wishes to testify, would the applicant please come forward?
Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'd like to offer the opportunity to fire or police to.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, prior to the applicant coming up, would you like to offer the opportunity to the representatives from the fire department or police department to present their input?
Yes, please. Would either of you like to come forward, or both of you?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Scott Coliani with the Meridian Police Department. Before I provide any comments, I just want to provide some context. I've worked for the Meridian Police Department since 1996. Nobody's more in touch with how the city's grown and the challenges we face all the time because of growth, especially in the schools. The Meridian Police Department has a tremendous relationship with the West Ada School District. I have working relationships with many people in the West Ada School District, good working relationships. And this is tough for me because I too vote for more schools. I don't get to pick the locations of the schools. I don't get to do any of that. My role is to simply give you information that will allow you to take that information and do what you want with it, however you make that decision. My role is I have an obligation to look at it from a public safety perspective. That's it. I don't look at dollars. I don't look at locations. We put kids first too. And I have an obligation to all the parents in the school district that when we build something or we do something, that we can ensure that we can respond and protect our families and our children. That's what I look at. In this particular application, the biggest issue I have is there's only one point of access, ingress and egress for us. It creates a problem for us because if something happens at that point, it creates a choke point for us and we can no longer get people out or resources in efficiently and effectively in a timely manner. That's all I look at. We have to have another public access into that location that will allow us a secondary access. It can't be down a canal bank because if we're getting kids out, it's not going to work. It has to be a roadway. I have to have that. The ingress, the choke point. What we've learned from the other high schools in the city, and they all have different points of access. I'm sure you're familiar with the other high schools and coming in and out of those parking lots. The lessons we've learned is kids cannot get out of the school quick enough before, during, after sporting events, lunches, you name it. They tend to park off-site. They tend to park in neighborhoods. And as neighborhoods develop around this, they get pushed into the neighborhoods, which causes parking problems, which causes headaches for the police department that we have to mitigate and sign and work with ACHD. So there's a lot of cascading effects if we can't get people in and out of the site quickly and efficiently. They get impatient. They're kids. I get it. Sporting events adds more trips at night. All these things compound. And, you know, unlike fire that'll talk shortly, they have international fire code for everything. Furniture, walls, fixtures, right? We don't have kids dying in fires. We have kids dying in school violence. And we have to be sure that we're doing everything we can to protect that. And what we're needing and asking is that I'm giving you this information and that we need 2 points of access into this school, not just one. That's my biggest hang up. I'll stand for questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Mosley.
can you go to the overall site map? So if they actually extended that street to the north where they just have the roundabout out to U-Stick, that would satisfy your concerns, is that not, or not U-Stick?
Or McMillan?
What's that?
McMillan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'd at least have that, and you'd be comfortable accepting this application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
There was I think there was also a comment about response times. Was that, or was that, is that more of a fire? Are we
Sure, no, this isn't in our scope of area that we respond to now. So it's a challenge to get up in front of you and say, this is what our response time is. Certainly with a school resource officer assigned to that school, that mitigates a lot of the problems that occur at the school. We have somebody there right on site that can deal with that, and we're not bringing resources in unless we have to. It's right there on site. what I talk about in response times is anything outside of the school that happens in the area that we're responsible for what those response times look like, such as when the SRO is not there and we have an accident close to the school because of a sporting event, people are coming out, we have to bring resources in to address that. That takes a little bit longer just given the proximity. We can service the school from that aspect. We can get there, we can put an SRO there, those things will work for us. The Swiss cheese, I know that's been brought up a lot. It's just, again, a point out that once you leave the frontage property, it turns into unincorporated Ada County, so it becomes slicing the pie. Well, we're 600 feet from this intersection, and that's a city. We're 200 feet north, that becomes the county. We need to call the county. We can't really do anything. It becomes awkward in terms of government resources being dispatched to handle a situation. It's something that we deal with now. It's just more of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Celiani. Is that how you pronounce your name? Would the representative from the Meridian Fire Department like to come forward?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is Deputy Chief Joe Mongerno. I'm the Deputy Chief of Prevention for the Meridian Fire Department. As Lieutenant Coliani explained, our biggest hangup is there's only one point into this property. I like to use the jet airplane scenario. If the jet airplane crashes right at that intersection, other than the proposed dirt, secondary access, we have no way to get in there. So if we have a crash at that intersection and somebody in the high school is having a heart attack, we're stuck. We have no way into that property. We had 2 pre-planning meetings with the developer, and we explained both times we need that north-south connection completed all the way out to McMillan. If that is done, that will solve the majority of what our concerns are. Mr. Adams also mentioned that the response times. So the response times, I did my own little Google map thing, and I came up with 7 minutes from Station 2. The problem with Station 2 is the reliability of that fire station is only at 80%. So that means that whenever there's a call at that fire station, only 80% of the time are they available to respond to an incident. So that means that another fire station is going to have to come, most likely Station 5, which is further away, which now lengthens that response time to get to the school. And I also mentioned in my report that Ada County EMS is also going to have an extended response time as well. Medic 36 is one of the busiest ambulances in the city, so we have 2 problems. So it's just going to take so much more time to get there. So as Lieutenant Coliani explained, we need that secondary access point. When Mountain View High School opened, they had 1 point in, 1 way in, 1 way out. And I don't know if any of you remember when that opened, Overland Road was a mess. And even when they added Puffin, it's still a mess. So 2 points is sometimes not enough either. So again, I think Lieutenant Coliani, he covered all of our goal is safety. I mean, that's our thing. Sonia covered that. Our main concern is safety. We're not against the project. The project's great. The high school's awesome. We just need better access to it. And the way it's designed, we don't feel it's safe for our students.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, question. If there was in lieu of going all the way to the north to McMillan, if there was another access point on the east side of the property, so you would have essentially 2 coming in off a U-stick, would that?
So the problem with that is in the fire code, I got the magic book. In my magic book, it states that access points have to be half the diagonal of the entire property. So if they put 2 access points on U-stick, they would be too close together.
Even in an emergency situation?
Even in an emergency situation. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
They could actually extend the road on the north side out to McDermott, correct? And that would serve your purpose?
Yes.
At least in the interim until State Highway 16 gets built, and then they'd have to provide another secondary access.
Yeah, Sonia had mentioned the development to the north that was denied. We have met with them. They are in the process of working to resubmit that property. I don't know if the school district has talked with them or not, but on their plan, they show that same collector. So we just need to get forces together and get the whole road completed. And then that would solve a lot of problems.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Okay, so at this time, would the applicant like to come back forward again?
Thank you. This is Matthew Adams. Do I need my address again? 462 East Shore Drive, Suite 100, Eagle, Idaho.
Thank you.
So a lot of things came up. To address them all, I need to ask Mr. Freeman to cover a couple of those items. You know, when we do these projects, it's as a team, so I cannot fully address all of them. So,
Mr. Freeman.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, and members of the commission. As I mentioned, I'm Mark Freeman. I'm the attorney for the joint West Ada School District. I really want to address in rebuttal the comments of Mr. Wardle and Mr. Hunter on this State Highway 16 need for the south road on the property. There was a question by the commissioner about a land swap, and that was offered. I guess that doesn't surprise me. I'm not a developer, but it doesn't surprise me that with the effects of Highway 16, that someone who owned property there wouldn't rather have frontage on Ustick Road, because I would assume, again, I'm not a developer, that it's much more valuable. But the school district looked at that moving readjusting their elementary site or adjusting, making the changes to the structure of the school site as a whole didn't work with the inclusion of the Woodside parcel. And the issue of the road that they are requesting the school district to build or assume major responsibility for, we understand their concerns about Highway 16. Anybody who owns a piece of property that was split in half by a potential future highway would have concerns about that. And the thing that we want to stress on the commission is it hasn't happened yet. It's planned to happen. It's not funded. It's on a map, but it hasn't occurred. And there are procedures in place with the ITD to compensate people whose properties are affected by such takings. And that may include roads being built at ITD's expense along certain portions of the property. And it also can include cash compensation to purchase property that may be affected. This is not the obligation of the West Ada School District. Understand, and you do, that these are public funds raised for education purposes. If they're not used at this site, they're going to be used for some other education purpose. And we just feel it is flat out wrong for the commission or the city to require, the council, to require the school district to pay any cost for that road. There was a mention by Mr. Hunter that we're mistaken because we can't get access off of Ustick Road for the surplus parcel we have there. We never proposed, we're not intending to ever get access to that off of Ustick Road. It fronts Ustick Road, but we're smart enough to know that we can't get access there. We have access if the collector road is built, the north-south collector, it's right against that property. We don't need a road. We're on the north-south collector. So I just wanted to make those points and appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. This is Matthew Adams speaking again. So first of all, thank you for your time, commissioners. We do request a decision tonight, an up or down, a denial or a recommendation for denial or approval to council, because we do feel that time is of the essence and a continuation would be to the detriment of all parties involved, including the city. To address our neighbor to the south, if it were up to us, we'd take them, and we're on their side. We'd take them into Meridian City as well. Woodside development, they are impacted by Highway 16, there is no question. ITD has a plan and an obligation to restore disrupted parcels with access. Our project complies with the ACHD master street map. We have offered an easement. We are not agreeable to constructing a road that solely benefits that developer. West Ada School District, as Mr. Freeman said, will take access from the collector. We have no concerns about not having access from USTIC. To address police department comments, thank you for your comments. We agree, West Ada and the Meridian Police Department have an excellent relationship, have worked collaboratively on many, many projects and continue to do so. And we have done so on this building, and we appreciate that. We do feel like we are providing a secondary access. We have a roadway, 20 foot wide, constructed to carry the weight of a fire truck that goes from our the east end of our east-west roadway out to McDermott. And it's not uncommon to have access points like that, maybe at the end of a cul-de-sac that goes into a neighboring development, but we have a roadway. And it is a second point of access. So possibly we're just down to the detail of how wide is it, or you know, how much gravel do you put on the ground, that kind of thing. So we do have that second access. The parking lot, biggest parking lot of any high school that West Ada has ever built, over 1,200 parking stalls. And I would say again, schools are safe. 3% of all child fatalities occur in schools. 97% of child fatalities occur outside of schools. We agree with safety. That's why West Ada takes it so seriously, and that's why they work so closely with police department and fire, and that's why these schools are so safe. We have a roadway to McDermott. We think we're down to the detail of how it's constructed. Our neighbor to the north, Trilogy, we've had many, many meetings with them, 7 or 8 meetings. They want to build the road to McMillan. They are highly in favor of us being annexed, gives them a path to annexation and a stronger argument, and allows them to construct that roadway. It would be contradictory to the way the staff report was presented tonight. I would also say, in the realm of safety, an overcrowded school creates an unsafe environment as well. So it's a really tough, everybody's talked about how tough this was. Sonia talked about how tough it was, and it was. We've talked about how tough this is. Police and fire have talked about how tough it is. We have overcrowded facilities that don't work when they're overcrowded. We have a plan for an excellent facility to relieve that, and there's a couple minor details that we need to address to make it work. I would, again, I'm repeating myself, but I would say that we do, for fire as well, have the second access point out to McDermott. We are working diligently to make sure we do provide that second route. We agree, if there's something catastrophic that happens at that one intersection, absolutely, access would be affected. And the odds of that happening don't matter, because if it happens once, you have that problem. That's why we're constructing nearly a half mile of roadway, gravel roadway out to McDermott, and that is currently in the plan. And with that, and again, I want to reiterate, we really would like a decision tonight. But with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I do have a question. Do you have the option of widening that road and paving it out to McDermott?
I think we are open to constructing the road in a manner that is meets the requirements of the fire department and the police department. We would, of course, that goes across another property. Mm-hmm. We have an agreement with them. They are agreeable to an easement in that location and a roadway being there. We would need to work with them and include them in those discussions. But I would not rule that out. I think that would be something we would definitely be interested in, because we have control over that route, and it gives us the ability to work on that.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
As related to that, over and over time, I heard both the police and fire said they want a public access, not a fire access. I take my daughter to Mountain View every day. It is a nightmare to get in and out of there. Last year, they had an accident at that intersection at Overland and going into the school. kids were 3 and 4 hours, or well, not that. They were an hour late because of the backups associated with that. Schools are safe. Kids are not. That's why my insurance is so high for my child, because they're not safe. Accidents will happen at that intersection frequently, would be my guess. How do we not provide safety for those kids as a second way out?
Thank you for the question. I understand, I agree with where you come from. When we look at our planning, we're not willing to push the unsafe conditions, the rapid growth, the overcrowding onto the other schools based on concerns that we think we've addressed. We feel confident we have a second access point for the fire department. We meet ACHD's master street map. We've demonstrated through an extensive traffic study that our roadway system works at an acceptable level of service. In the design world, we design to standards, we design to codes, and then we take all of our experience and all the input we receive from the owner and the agencies, and we try to go above and beyond those codes. We are unable, unfortunately, to design for every situation that may occur ever, because budgets, timelines, quality are all concerns. So we do meet all the codes. We have good engineering standards and science that show that this intersection will function at an acceptable level of service. And we've taken all of our experience to improve the site plan and make it work even better than a Mountain View or a Rocky. So I understand what you're saying. My kids went to Rocky, and I picked my daughter up one time, and I said, never again, because you just can't get in and out. She graduated, and they added 100 more students. I don't even drive down Linder anymore because I don't want to go anywhere near it. And that will continue to worsen.
Commissioners, do you have any more questions? The applicant.
Madam Chair, one more follow-up question.
Commissioner Holland.
So a lot of the comments tonight were that if that road would be extended all the way up to McMillan, there would be a lot less concerns. I know you don't want to get to the point where you have a continuance. If there was an option to have a continuance to figure out what to do to get that road to go through, would that be an option for you to consider, or would you prefer? I'm trying to figure out what we can do here, because obviously we know there's a need for education. We know there's a need for a new school here. In the Meridian area, we've got some overcrowding issues. We're all aware of that, but just trying to figure out how we can help with this access issue.
Great question, Commissioner Holland. Thank you. We do not want a continuance. If this was the price of right, I could look at my team and they'd yell higher or lower, right? I think we're okay with conditions that say we have to have a second point of access. And we feel like, we're probably a month from a council meeting. And having a recommendation of approval with a condition that a second point of access meet fire and police department requirements and needs could be accomplished and could be presented at that council meeting. Because we already have a road to McDermott. We've already talked to Trilogy half a dozen times about a road to the north. Those discussions have taken place, and those kind of agreements could be put in place pretty quickly. I cannot speak to the budgets on whether or not we can afford building another half mile of public roadway, but I know we can look at that for sure. I don't know that a continuance and then coming back to this group, well, that's up to you. That's up to you. If this group needs to see the exact solution before you can recommend approval, that would be up to you. Knowing that you've conditioned it, recommended it with a condition that has to occur, might be satisfying to you. I don't know. Great question.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Okay, at this time, can I get a motion to close the public hearing for item number H20180075?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners, please share your thoughts.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Actually, I have a couple of questions for staff, if I can, before comments. Access, it sounds like one of the biggest hurdles was some of were the access points. I mean, obviously we have the Swiss cheese effect, and I could talk to that, but for right now, the access points. Primarily, that first one with Boise Hunter Homes, the Woodside parcel, the proposed, is that just a proposed stub street to go through? Sonia, can you elaborate on that?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
That
but
one road, the one that's up front that Boise Hunter Homes wants them to pay 80%. West Ada doesn't feel that they should have to pay for that. It's that one access point. Do you know the one I'm referring to?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Casanelli, are you referring to the southern east-west?
Correct.
Driveway here?
Correct.
If commission decides to, or would like to consider recommending approval of this project, staff has prepared draft conditions of approval. If you decide to go down that route, I would suggest that you have a recess, review those conditions of approval, the applicant review those conditions of approval before making a recommendation tonight. Staff has included as a condition of approval, if you choose to go that route, that the applicant construct a local street east-west to the Hunter Homes property.
And that's just for an additional access point into that property?
Yes, our city code requires that access be provided to adjacent properties when access via a local street is not available to their property. In this case, the Hunter Homes property only has access to an arterial street.
Okay. Can you also, were you, Sonia, who is working on the Trilogy project?
I was also the planner on that.
Okay.
An application that I referred to earlier came through a couple years ago. Trilogy is currently working on a development plan for that land also. If
that access road, if that collector, then the north-south between Ustick and McMillan, what would be the potential timeline of that going all the way through?
Commissioner Casanelli, that's impossible to answer because there is not a development application before the city right now for that. I would note, though, that that property is only this area right here where my pointer is. It's only the area north of this creek right here to McMillan, so there would be a gap in this area.
Okay, so the timeline, I mean, that could be, we're talking years and years out, possibly.
It would depend on if the commission and council would approve that application. Last time it was before the council, they denied it because they did not want to expand the city past to the west of McDermott Road.
So we cannot count on that being extended at this point. Okay.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, if I may, Sonia, when we met with that developer, he did include that next section of land. So they're looking at developing that whole chunk.
Okay.
Hey, commissioners, any other thoughts?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley?
I can't go against what police and fire have said. We need a secondary public access, not a secondary fire access. Like I said, I've seen what happens at Mountain View, and I don't want to have those same mistakes happen here. Even the applicant did say he doesn't like to drive by Rocky Mountain High School or drop his kids off, and that actually has better access than this.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I recommend approval when the applicant actually stated that he doesn't like going to Rocky Mountain High School? I have not seen the traffic report, but I still hesitant to believe that this meets the acceptable level of service. I don't know if they're assuming that more kids are bused than actually will happen. Just what I see at Mountain View and other high schools, traffic is horrendous trying to get in and out of the schools. Kids don't drive safely. I see them cut through subdivision or through commercial properties trying to get 1 second sooner to school. And I think it's just going to be, worsened with just one access on a local rural street like this, and not actually having an actual, more wider street system than it is at U-Stick. So I understand why they bought this property, but if you look at the future conditions of this area is more than likely going to be commercial. I mean, given the access off the interstate or the future interstate that's coming through here, even Nampa's future land use map shows their section as commercial. So we're putting this high school in the middle of a commercial area, which is not, it's been done before, but is that the appropriate location for a high school? Just because it was cheaper. I don't know. And being that far out from everything, I struggle to want to approve this.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Holland.
I'll attempt to go next. I agree with a lot of the comments that you've made as well. The single access for me is the biggest sticking point, because I want to make sure that our kids can get in and out of school safely. And the applicant expressed that this specific school will have more parking than any other, which means there's more cars and more traffic coming in and out of it than any other. I agree with you. I drive by Mountain View all the time. I grew up in this area. I know the school district, and I know that they've got an immense need for more schools. I don't think anyone's arguing that we don't need more schools in this project. I think that's pretty evident. We all want to see our kids have opportunities to a good education. With the Highway 16 expansion too, I worry about the proposed access road that could connect over to McDermott, because it'll be a moot point once that Highway 16 project continues through. Ultimately, it really needs to be that road would be extended up to McMillan to make a full access loop in there. That would make me feel more comfortable with moving this application forward if that was a condition that we were to put in there. As far as the Swiss cheese development goes, I agree. You don't want to create the sprawl, and you typically around high schools you'll get more residential development, you'll get more commercial development. It will spur growth in that area, that's for sure. We can't pick up this application and move it to a different spot. But I think for me, the biggest sticking point would be that we would have to have a condition that would extend that residential collector all the way through to McMillan for me to consider approval.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson.
So it sounds like there's an openness to at least looking at the recommended or what those conditions will want to do, because I want to say yes to this project. And obviously, as we've kind of gone through the arguments, I think we've gone to this sticking point of public access. I mean, I think everything else, I think usually when we get these kinds of projects, we're impacting the schools in a negative way, and this is an opportunity to approve a project that actually alleviates that challenge we're having in our community. I agreed with one of the trustees that this isn't just another developer. I mean, these are stewards of the taxpayers' money, so that's obviously been a part of my consideration. So I want to say yes to this, and it sounds like we'd be open to looking at what those conditions, what those proposed conditions would look like in order to move this forward.
Sonia, how does that process work for us?
Madam Chair, do you mean if you would like to review the conditions of approval?
Correct.
Then I would recommend having a recess.
Okay. Is that something that the commissioners need to agree on to take that recess, or do we just call the recess?
I think it seems like you're in agreement.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and call a 10-minute recess. Is that sufficient time to review? It is?
I believe so.
Okay. Call a 10-minute recess.
Should we conclude with this from the old chair? I'm sure you can. I'm just.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you take your seats, please. Okay, we are actually going to open this for a public hearing again very quickly. So at this time, we will open the public hearing for Owyhee High School H2010075 by West Ada School District for the purpose of including these draft conditions of approval that were just provided by the staff. And that's the sole purpose that we're reopening this. So with that said, can I get a motion to then again close the public hearing H201800075?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
Sorry, Madam Chair, do we not have to have don't we typically do a motion to open the public hearing after we've already closed it?
Well, it was closed.
Well, we closed it, but don't you have to have a motion to reopen it?
I thought
Do we need to make a motion, or do we just state
yes.
it?
Oh, I thought you did say a motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, no, thank you, Steve.
Madam
Chair. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd request that we make a motion to reopen item 4E, Owyhee High School H-2018-0075 for the purpose of acknowledging the draft conditions of approval presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to reopen the public hearing for the purpose of acknowledging the draft conditions of approval. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Now I'll take a motion to close.
Chair.
Do we not have to provide, at least let the applicant provide public comment to these conditions, or do we need to explain the intent of opening the public hearing to the applicant?
Well, and there might be questions here too on some of these.
Yeah.
The concern was the lack of public notice with regard to these conditions. So by allowing staff and the applicant to speak to them, if you were so inclined, public here could as well, but it would leave others who didn't have the full packet available to them to speak to.
Okay. Thank you.
So then now I will request a motion to close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, I'll request to make a motion to close the public hearing for Owyhee High School H-2018-0075.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for Owyhee High School H-2018-0075. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
A couple of things that have stood out to me, and I will say that I recognize full well that all the schools are overcrowded, and there's an immediate need yesterday for more schools. I think just not high schools, but everything, and it's part of the downside to the growth that we're seeing in this area. I'm not wild about the Swiss cheese effect that's been discussed, but you know, to get schools, you know, and I don't think it's smart, because you never know where, I mean, you never know where the growth is going to go. You're doing a lot of guesswork, and you know, things could backfire. I don't think it would happen necessarily in this scenario, because there is residential going in nearby. But a couple of the issues I have, one of the comments from the team from West Ada was that they weren't willing to pay for that the access road into the Boise Hunter Homes property, and that roadway has to go in. And honestly, I think that's their responsibility. They've got to stub that in and make that accessible. We had another applicant, it was a school that came in 2 months ago, I believe it was back in June, and they had to do these conditions. They had to pay for it on a much, you know, it was a smaller scale, and they had to build a collector road. You know, and they're a public entity. They were a public entity as well, and so they had to do it. So to have West Ada come in and say we're not willing to do it, honestly, I'll say it, I think it's kind of arrogant. They have to do it. It's code, and they have to do it. Something else, and I don't know if we can really get into some of the details on the draft conditions of approval, but something that stands out to me there is it okay to address that? Okay. There's a fire station. There's a condition there on the develop agreement number D, item D, for a fire station that needs to be located and secured. Tacosonia, when we're at recess, doesn't need to be built, but secured. And we're not even, you know, before a C of O can be issued on that, you know, we're not even there on that. I'm not wild about the Swiss cheese effect. I would be willing to look past it, because yes, everything's overcrowded. It's growing. It's needed. But I'm very concerned about the access. It's not there yet. Until we can get it. And then that other road, I think this site can still be done. I just think they have to have to roll up their sleeves and keep working on it.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland?
I think with where we're at in the process, our hands are a little bit tied, that we've got this draft conditions of approval. And I think if we were to recommend approval tonight based on these draft conditions, we haven't given ample enough time to really absorb and hear staff concerns and the applicant's testimony with those. I would say, I know that they are preferring to have a decision one way or another tonight, but I would say at this point, I would rather see it continued so that we could get ample time to get feedback on these draft conditions. Just thought.
Madam Chair, I have a tendency to agree with that, and we might be able to add some additional conditions or that we'd like to see, like the stub road, and then also if they do extend a road to the north, that actually be a signalized intersection as well, you know. So I think continuance is an appropriate decision. I know it's not what the applicant would like, but I do believe it is an appropriate decision.
Okay. So with all of that said, would anyone like to make a motion? Commissioner Wilson, do you have something to add?
Well, I guess,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm more inclined to deny, but I recognize that continuing is probably, just in terms of the process, maybe the best way to get yes and to kind of give us the best recommendation possible to City Council. I think if we can actually review these, have public testimony, kind of flesh out as we do, and go through this process, that's probably going to be the best way moving forward. So that's, I think, where I'm at. Recognizing that denial might expedite the process, and I don't know where you're at, Bill.
I think I'm more inclined on the denial, because then I think the applicant will have to, they know what the issues are. Staff has told them, police and fire have told them what the issues are. I think then they go back to the drawing board and they figure out the solutions. I don't know that, honestly, I think a denial is quicker for them than a continuance. I think a continuance is going to kick the ball down the road and slow things down.
If you make a motion, yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I
Commissioner
ask
Holland?
just one more question of staff?
Sure.
As far as process goes, if we were to issue a denial of this project, they would have to go back to the drawing board and resubmit a new application with the different site plan, or it pretty much kills the project?
Chairman, Commissioner Holland, the commission is a recommending body on this application, so you're only making a recommendation to City Council. They are the final decision-making body. So no, it will proceed forward with the existing plan.
I mean, Madam Chair, I mean, the way I understand it, it takes due consideration of these draft proposals out of our hands, hopefully puts it in the public domain for discussion and for City Council. I mean, that was the idea of opening up and having these submitted. So, yeah, I mean, ideally, that's kind of what we were trying to do there. And hopefully it would work, and hopefully the applicant could address those considerations and gain approval from City Council, hopefully.
So,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Sonia, so if we continue it, they're coming back, it'll come back before us, before it goes to City Council? Or will it go to City Council?
Chairman, Commissioner Casanelli, Commissioners, if you recommend
Continue.
continuance, it'll come back to you, and I will need instructions on what you would like to see when it, at the next hearing. If it's conditions of approval, if it's the applicant needs to make changes to their plan, there needs to be clear direction from you.
Okay.
So commissioners, I think my recommendation would be if you're considering a continuance, that you would reopen the hearing, you would allow staff to present these conditions of approval, let the applicant respond, open it up for public that are here if they wanted to comment on it, so that you can get the input from the applicant and staff in order to give them what to be working on during the continuance, right? You've got to give them guidance as to what to work with staff to bring back something different. So if you want to go that route, then I say open it up and we're here. Let's have staff present it. You'll hear their concerns. Applicant has had time to review it. Let them come in. I mean, if they say we're not interested, in any of, we disagree with all these conditions, you might need to know that. And then it may lead you to a different decision than a continuance, if you hear that conversation out. But I wasn't thinking you were leaning in that direction, but that's the process I'd recommend.
So we would do that now rather than and then just make the decision
Right.
at the next hearing?
Or tonight, depending on what you hear.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, just some clarification for you. Keep in mind the applicant, you, staff, we just gave you those draft conditions. No one's had any time to digest those conditions this evening. In the normal process, it is prudent for the commission to continue this out, give the applicant time to provide a response to those conditions, give them time to modify their site plan if that's the direction you provide. I'm hesitant to open up the hearing, discuss the conditions of approval when no one's had any time to digest them and have and articulate a response to those DA provisions. So I think at this point, if you want to move forward with denial as preferred by the applicant, you certainly have that discretion. If you do continue this out, I would recommend that we continue it out for the purpose of discussing those DA provisions, so that when we come back for that another hearing, we have a chance to get a response from the applicant on those changes, and you have a chance for staff to also work with the applicant and talk with them through those changes, and then we can have that discussion at a later date. But that's, and the public would also have a chance to come back and talk about those conditions as well, because you've left the public hearing open and you've continued it to a date certain. Now, what we don't know is how much time the applicant needs to look at those conditions, digest them, work with staff, and then come back to this body. I will tell you that the 20th is getting to be very full, a full agenda. I know time is of the essence, but the next hearing is the 20th. The one after that is October 4th. So I'll quit discussing the process and then just stand for any other questions you may have about it.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Wilson.
Just kind of a point perhaps for denial. I mean, the question is, can we provide clear enough guidance? I mean, does a continuance make sense? And that's the question. I mean, not only have they not been able to maybe digest it, but I don't think I have. So, I mean, that would be kind of the question for the commission. Can we provide clear guidance, or based on what we have before us, do we go forward with the denial? Because, I mean, that's what we have before us is the staff report, and obviously our issue with that second public access. And I think in most cases that would lead us to a denial, a recommended denial.
So, Commissioner Wilson, are you
making an argument for denial?
Yeah, you're suggesting that maybe
I just don't know if we can make, I just don't know, can we, I mean, are we throwing it to them? Are we, I mean, or what are we doing with that, I guess?
So are you perhaps saying that you think they'll review these and they won't come back with a different approach, or is that what you're?
I mean, potentially, I guess. I just question whether we can, again, provide that clear guidance. I mean, if we're just going to give them a piece of paper, well, I guess that's fine. But, I mean, do we really, are we confident that this is, you know, is this going to, you know, this is going to be continued, they're going to come back to us, they're going to accept this, and we're not going to deny them anyway, for whatever reason.
And for clarification, these were not included in the staff report because staff had recommended denial. So this is the first time that they've been reviewed.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Sonia, have they seen these?
Chairman, Commissioners, Commissioner Casanelli, the first time they saw them was when you did.
Okay.
When staff makes a recommendation of denial, there aren't conditions of approval associated with it. The only reason staff did this in this case was because of the urgency of their application and needing to move it forward.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Do we want to open it up just to bring the applicant back up and ask them if they would, I mean, what would suit their, what's going to be quicker for them, I guess?
He's pretty much, I think the applicant's pretty much stated they would rather have a denial than.
Although they hadn't seen these yet, so I don't know.
I realize that, but I don't think that's going to matter, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
These are additional requirements they're going to have to follow beyond what has already been requested, so.
And if you're reading between the lines of my argument, I'm kind of going there too. So.
Well, I want to help along. I want to do what's going to be, despite my comments, I realize that it's critical that we need a high school. It needs to be built, you know. So I don't want to delay it too long. So I'm just I guess my question here, you know, some feedback is, you know, ultimately what's going to be quickest for them to continue to move to work towards approval. Is it going to be denying it, and then it goes to City Council, then they're going to, and it's going to come back, or is it continuance going to be the faster way? Bill, you're kind of shaking and nodding your head over there.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I had a discussion with the applicant. I mean, they're adamant they have to be in front of the council in November. So if we continue this out even to October 4th, we're pushing that. To me, I'm getting the impression they just want to get in front of council as quickly as possible, and denial would do that. And you would not get another bite at this application unless council remanded it back to you to take it under further consideration. But that's something I can't predict what the council will do on this application. But again, if you make a recommendation of denial this evening, staff prepares recommendations from this hearing, and there are no conditions that move forward to city council. It falls in their lap to make a decision whether or not they're going to overturn your decision or stay with your recommendation. So just keep that in mind as well.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland?
I guess that's what my initial question meant, was not that the project dies after we see it, but it would die after city council saw it. And I'd say my concern with recommending denial is that they'll get to the same point that we're at right here, where they'll say, well, what if we were to put some conditions in there and approve it? Then they're going to have the same issue we have of looking at these conditions without having the chance to really review them. If we could continue it and figure out a way to at least hear what the applicant's concerns are with these conditions, if they'd be willing to move forward with what staff's recommendations are, and we could save them that time frame of having to go back and start over after the November hearing if they were in front of city council. That's part of the reason I was leaning towards continuing, just to see if we could help them get that further along.
So how does that work with city council if we deny, and how does it work with these conditions? The staff report stays the same, that you recommend denial, and city council's not going to review these as part of the public hearing, is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, staff report stays the same.
Mhm.
The commission is recommending denial. However, the conditions of approval that have been shared with you tonight will be part of the public record.
Okay.
So council will have a chance to review those, and I would recommend to the applicant to provide a response to those so that the council has that at their next meeting.
Okay.
If there's any deal breakers with the commission, so to speak, or I should say, things that you would definitely like to see, such as an extension of a public street to McMillan Road, I would suggest including that in your reasons for denial.
Yeah. Okay.
So that council knows what your thoughts are on those.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend denial to City Council of file number H 2018-0075 as presented in a staff report for the hearing date of September 6, 2018 for the following reasons. One, for the patchwork of annexation that it can provide in the future. Two, they don't have a secondary access, particularly to McMillan with a signal. And safety concerns because of that due to fire and police.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend denial of application H20180075 for Owyhee High School. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Motion carries for denial. Thank you. Now it's my understanding that staff has a presentation to make regarding changes to the staff report. Okay, everybody. Let's get back to our seats. Mr. Parsons, I hope you have something entertaining for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Just to have a couple housekeeping items to go over with you. So the first portion of my discussion with you this evening is, it ties nicely into some of the action you've taken on recently with the school district. So staff has been working behind the scenes to find a better way to communicate information to the commission and the city council to not only get more information, but clearer information so that you can make an informed decision when these applications before you. We have partnered with fire, police, the school district to help get that information to you. And so I prepared a memo, gave you a draft copy of this staff report so you can kind of understand where we're coming from and what we hope to achieve and what we hope to incorporate in a revised staff report so that a lot of these questions will be answered for you as you deliberate on these land use applications. So as I mentioned to you, you can see this new staff report is a total reformat from what you've seen. It's a departure. We've restructured the staff report, trying to get the information at the beginning of the report earlier and often to you so you don't have to read through pages and pages of analysis from staff. And so you'll see that as far as the new project description. Here we'll highlight some of those, again, that high level, what they're applied for, the density, any special requests, any waivers from council for access. And I think we may also provide a section in here that speaks to if there's any public benefit that the project is providing, say like an off-site improvement or a road extension outside of the project boundary in order to help the community facilitate improvements ahead of the development or ahead of concerns. So what we've added here for you, and it's similar to what ACHD does in their staff reports, is we have a project summary. Again, a lot of this information was already in the staff report that you received now. We've just condensed it into a table format. And then if there's any details or any concerns with any of these items, we've referenced a page number so that you can go to that section of the staff report and read up on additional information that we provide to you in there. One of the most critical tables that we've added is this community metrics. So this has added a level of complexity to the staff report. We have many different agencies that have to comment on it, one being ITD. Again, all of these applications get transmitted to these agencies. It's nothing new. We incorporate these as comments or conditions of approval in the staff report. We're just informing you earlier and often in the staff report at the beginning rather than the end, and then referencing the pages if there's any concerns that those agencies have. Some of the areas that I do want to highlight for the commission this evening is, and I'm hoping it's in this version, but particularly for a project that ACHD is taking action on, a lot of times, or sometimes, we may not have a staff report from ACHD as a project comes forward to you. Or at the last minute, a neighbor may complain and that project now gets out of staff's hands at ACHD and has to go in front of their commission for action. Well, that will be added data put into this staff report that you know that yes, the ACHD's commissions acted on this report and it was on this date, or it was staff level approval. And that way you're more informed as to what action ACHD staff is taking as well. Absolutely. Go ahead.
My apologies. So that being said, I want to understand why ACHD is not, or why we don't request that they have a response in every single time prior to our hearing. Can you help me understand that a little bit better?
Sure. Commission, a lot of times what we have to realize is that ACHD doesn't just service Meridian. They service all the Treasure Valley. So there's multiple jurisdictions bombarding them with applications. And they have time constraints. They have staff constraints just like all of us do. And so they're doing their very best in order to get that information to us. What we've discussed as staff is if we have a longer process or a bigger project, more complex project, let's push those out a little bit farther so we can buy that extra time for ACHD staff. And we've done a better job of that for you. So I've noticed in the last couple months you haven't had too many delays with ACHD and not getting their response. At least the goal is to have a draft staff report for you so we know where they're going. And if we don't have the conditions, then staff will oftentimes email that planner from ACHD working on the project and saying, where are you lying on this issue? Because we're going to recommend these changes as part of our review. Are you guys in support of that, or aren't you? So again, we need longer lead times for that. And particularly, we can't always predict when a project's going to get pulled off of their staff level approval and go to their commission. But they do give us a heads up, and if we know that, we can certainly insert that into the staff report. Okay. And you as a body have an option to continue that and wait for ACHD's comments to catch up or not.
Okay.
Again, it's a case-by-case basis. You have to look at the complexity of the project and how much of an impact is it on the infrastructure. Is it something that we need to get input on from ACHD on? So keep that in mind when you're deliberating on these projects as well.
Thank you.
So you can see we've added quite a few community metrics, and it goes to what the police and fire testified this evening, where they talked about response times, level of service, response times to those. I mean, there's a whole bunch of information that's going to be thrown at you. And as we get those conditions, they'll be still put in the staff report. But again, if it's something we've highlighted in the analysis, we'll reference it with a page number, and you'll go right to that section. Almost like, again, Hawaii High School is a prime example of where that was kind of the first staff report where we kind of implemented new conditions, and that's why they were gracious enough to come this evening and speak on what they had recommended as part of the project. The next couple of sections, I did want to point out that we are going to include more graphics for you. It's nothing new to the commission, but we will include a future land use map, an aerial, the zoning map, and then I didn't know if commission was aware of this, but we do, typically when a project comes in, we do require CAD files so that we can model that development. Our GIS department, Public Works, inputs that information into our system, make sure everything, we can adequately provide water and sewer. But it's also a good tool for the commission to see what you've approved and nearby surrounding properties and see how that relates to those adjacent developments that have been approved. So we've labeled this as a planned development map, and again, here's a quick example of what, where a project, we could highlight it here, and then everything else around it, you see what's tentative, either preliminary platted or final platted in the vicinity. So you start getting that whole context of what's actually occurring in that area as you're making decisions on land uses. One other item that we've added is the noticing. I didn't know if commission was aware of this, but about 8 months ago, we decided to start posting our land use applications on Nextdoor so that we could get a broader outreach to the community so they were aware of what's going on in their community and provide them the opportunity to comment on applications. So we've added that date. The clerk updates that information on Laserfish on their searchable document site. We go in there, populate that date based on the information the clerk provides. And then also a recommendation of council was to include when neighborhood meetings were held and the number of attendees. So that way you know if it's a contentious project or not. You're not blindsided at the hearing and see an audience full of people and weren't aware that this was an issue at the time that the neighborhood meeting came in. At the time the applicant discussed the project at the neighborhood meeting. A lot of times you get up here, you hear the applicant or the neighbor say, we were never notified, or they didn't discuss this at a neighborhood meeting. Well, this gives you an opportunity to at least see when they held that and how many people in attendance were there. And again, this is all part of the application that they submit to the city as part of their land use application. Again, just getting you a quicker look at it. One of the other changes that I've highlighted in the memo that I provided to you is section 5 here, and I've kind of tentatively labeled it as project analysis. Currently, the way the staff report is written, we have a comprehensive plan section, we have a UDC section, and then we have an analysis section. And a lot of times as staff, we have a tendency to be redundant on some of the analysis that we provide to you, so it can get overwhelming. I read that someplace else, and then we cut and paste it into another section. I thought this was a good way to have all of that analysis under one heading. So that way, as you can relate staff's analysis to not only UDC code sections, but also comp plan policies, and see how a project relates to those policies and why we think it meets that goal and policy and the UDC or how it doesn't. And now you can kind of make that nexus. So I think that'll bridge that gap a little bit greater for you, not only for the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, but also the public. A lot of times you can see the public is getting a little more savvy these days. They're reading through our comp plan, they're citing comp plan policies, trying to justify why they're in support or asking you to deny a project as well. So I think kind of providing a nexus to that is going to be crucial in your approvals of land use applications. And then the findings, exhibits, conditions, again, this is just a reordering rather than having those kind of midsection of the staff report. We're just putting those items at the end of the staff report. So unfortunately, I don't have one all tailored out and broke down as to how it would look in its final form. But I did want you guys to take a look at this, provide us comment on it. Want to hear your feedback as where you think, if we're headed in the right direction, if you find this to be helpful moving forward. Staff is eager to get this implemented. We have some work to do with our IT department to get its template built. The ideal is to get this automated and working with our database system so a lot of this can be inputted electronically, so we're not, a lot of staff time doesn't have to go into populating a lot of this information. But we certainly want to get your input on it as well as you guys read it and help us with these projects. So with that, I'll stand for any questions or any other thoughts you may have or other items you may want included as part of the staff report template.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Castelli.
Bill, I like the layout of that. Can you scroll all the way up to the top? I just want to look at that first section. So the summary and whatnot. Scroll down just a little bit. Is there a way to, without getting too intense on your end, to have like some hyperlinks or something in there? I mean, when we got, when staff report is X number of pages long, and I'm bouncing here and looking at it online, during the commission meeting, and it says, it talks about a condition in section C or whatever, or we get it, we drill down, it's 1.1.3. Is there a way to have a link in there so that we could just jump right to that instead of trying to figure out where it's at? And you're going to have page numbers, I know, but is there another way to, even quicker, when we're up here, we can kind of bounce back and forth without it being too overly intense for you guys to do that? Does anybody else?
Well, it's a PDF document, so I don't know exactly how that works.
Yeah.
But you could just go up to the section up there where it says page number and pop that page number in. Right
Okay, yeah.
And just do it that way too. Just a thought. Especially if it's PDF, I don't know how friendly it is with the links to the outside documents. So.
Well, what we were thinking is a lot of times, a staff report has a numerous amount of exhibits as part of the staff report. Certainly we want that part of the findings document. But at some point, we can put hyperlinks in here to Laserfish site, the clerk site, and that at least gets you to the staff report, the exhibits. A lot of times the exhibits are hard to read in the staff report when you get them in this format. So if we can create hyperlinks to those exhibits online too, you can also look at those and zoom in and verify what the applicant's doing too. So I think that's kind of the next steps to build some of that in there for you, so you do have that flexibility to go in and out and look at public testimony. That would be a great idea. If there was public testimony, we could have a link right there and you can go right to Laserfish and look at all the agency's comments. We can create that in the staff report for you. Okay. So you can look at that.
But in the one thing I'd like to see is if there's a condition, you say we've got, staff conditions. Condition 1.1, and that's linked, and then boom, we could just jump right to that instead of scrolling down. But you did say, we could put the page in if you've got the page number reference there too. That would be it. If you can't do a link to it.
I can talk with, I'm not technical expert on any means, but I can certainly run that up to someone that may have a better idea than what I do. But
do you have that on in this format that you've shown us? Is there do you have it laid out like that, like your conditions, and it would be, you've got the page number that the conditions?
Yeah, typically the conditions will be at the end of the staff report, so you should be able to dive, rather than going, right now we have it structured as Exhibit B, which is, again, is about 3/4 into the staff report.
Yeah.
You put it at the end of the staff report, you go to the last couple pages, that's where the conditions are gonna be. So you're gonna be able to dive into there a little bit quicker and find that information than trying to scroll through all the other exhibits and then get through the conditions. All of that's gonna be at the tail end. So it is easier and more function, provides more function for you to get to those documents. I don't see staff going, see page 6 for this condition. We're gonna just say, look at section 9. Again, these first tables up here, community metrics may have that up. That's where we'll either point you to the analysis section or the conditions of approval. But this project summary is basically just highlights of the project. It's just quick numbers for you to look at. Okay, here's the comp plan designation, here's the acreage, here's the number of lots. And then the analysis will be, how we explain that will typically end up in the analysis section. And also any conditions of approval that support that analysis or staff recommendation. Certainly we can play with that and see if it's a possibility. I don't know at this point. We haven't played with the electronic template yet. We don't have one formulated yet, but that's the next step.
If it's something that's possible, it would be.
I can look into it.
It'd be nice to be able to jump straight to something.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland.
Bill, I think it's a great layout, and I really appreciate you trying to make it more streamlined for you and for us. I particularly like Table 2A, just the quick summary, and I also like the maps, because I think it's great to see the context, and also the planned development map. I think that's going to be very valuable as we go forward. So thanks for working on this.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I think it will prevent a lot of jumping back and forth between the application and this and some of the other documents. I notice that I do that a lot as I'm reading through things, so.
Just FYI for the commission too, we're also going to just label our conditions 1, 2, 3, 4. So a lot of times you get tongue-tied trying to say, I need condition 1.2, 0.3, 0.4. It doesn't work well. So moving forward, we've agreed we're going to have we're going to treat it just like any other department, site-specific conditions and standard conditions of approval. And then we'll just say site-specific condition number 1 or DA provision number 1, whatever it's going to be. But it's just going to be simple numbering, get it on the record, get it quick, amend it quickly. That way we're not stumbling over a bunch of numbers that make no sense to anybody. Again, we're working on those standard conditions and site-specific conditions that we'll also incorporate into the staff report. So like the phase 2, that work's underway as well.
Bill, I actually have up on the information on the up above. Keep going up. Like here, one of the things that would be helpful on some of this is, you know, like what is the open space, you know, percentage. You know, if we actually have what the open space is, and then also show what's the minimum required, you know, so we at least have a standard, or, you know, even like your land, you know, density, you know, what range should this be in, you know, at least to have a way to judge, you know, where this fits within that designation might be helpful as well.
Sure. We certainly that's why we have that detailed section. So we'll explain to you what they're proposing and providing, and then again, going back to that analysis, we'll put in page 5 or 6, and then you'll see that kind of explained down there. But we can certainly say code 10%, and they're providing 10.2.
Yeah.
And that way you know it's either exceeds, it's bare minimum or exceeds, right? I think that's what you're getting at.
That's what I'm asking.
You want to know if something is better than code.
Right.
Exceeds code.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner, because I did want to kind of touch bases on staff summary. So under section 6, we're going to tell you that. We're going to give you a quick summary that says, yep, it meets the minimums or it exceeds the minimums. Because we heard from our council, you know, like anything, we want cities to be progressive. We always want to have a minimum. But a lot of times we don't always want the same development over and over, right? We want to have a diverse community. So you're always going to have a developer that does bare minimums, and you're always going to have a developer that goes above and beyond. And so council has really tasked us to tell us whether or not is this their words, is this a premier community project or is it just a bare minimum project? And so this is kind of what we're going to do to say, yeah, this is, it's an okay development. It meets code.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best development Meridian's ever seen. Or if one comes in that's unique, has a 50% open space, a clubhouse, 3 pools, or whatever it may be, we can say, hey, this is going above and beyond. This exceeds code, and that's kind of code where this is a premier community. They're doing more than code minimum.
Right. I like that idea.
So on that note, does staff look at how the other developments surrounding the application have, what their open space, like how do you as staff look at that? Do you look at, okay, within this square mile, everything is the minimum, or do you look at it at that level?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I don't think we're going to, again, every project's case by case.
Okay.
Any project that comes in, if it's a subdivision and it's over 5 acres, we're talking, and as you provide more open space, the larger the project. I mean, you provide 10% open space, whether it's a 5-acre development or a 200-acre development. And there's some code changes that will come before this body at some point. We got to still working on those as we speak to try to figure out how to get that right ratio between a 5-acre development and a 200-acre development. There's got to be a fine line between that. But no, the only time that would come into play is, for example, if a developer had 40 acres and they picked up an additional 10 acres, and now they want to do a development agreement amendment to roll in that 10 acres into their 40 acres and then share amenities, then that becomes a discussion point in the staff report. And we say, well, they did 15% here in this first 40 acres. We're only going to require 5% this phase because the DA is going to tie all of it under one umbrella look at it as one development. So overall they meet code or exceed code. That's where that example could come into play. Anything else on that?
So the next step is to have kind of a staff report all drawn up and with this format. Is that right?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the next step is really, we've taken this to the council. They like what they saw. We've vetted it through all the other departments. So our next steps is really to finalize it, get it automated, so that when our partnering agencies provide comments, all of that gets imported into an electronic document and then go live with this so that you guys have this format and get that information in your hands. But moving forward, we've already started implementing police and fire's comments. They're new comments, so you'll start seeing more and more of that. And I also want to let you know that I did reach out to the school district, and they have provided me with their information on the number of students and the capacity of their schools. So that will start getting rolled into the staff report too. So you'll start getting a whole bunch of information, level of service of the roadways, the road improvements. You'll get all of that in that table so that you guys understand what's the cumulative, I guess, impacts of that development and where all the other agencies are coming from on that development and their take on it and their conditions. So I think it's a good step moving forward to get you more information, but also the right information so that you guys can make an informed decision.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Like the table.
Anything else that you believe should be added, or do you think we captured everything? I know it's a lot to digest.
No, the only thought I have on it is just, is this table going to get really full and difficult to read? Because there's, I don't know how you're going to space it with your fonts or whatnot. I just wonder if you're going to look at it and it's going to be, do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And that's
just a formatting thing.
When we started off, I'll give you kind of the high level. When we started this process, we want to streamline it. I think you heard the school district say that. We all want to be efficient with our time. We have limited resources, but we also want to get the right information in the staff report. So this has morphed beyond what we envisioned it would be when we started out on this, but I think it's good information. And I would let you know that every project's not going to have all these metrics as part of it. I mean, if it's a CUP, you don't need to know
So there's going to be some gaps.
Exactly. This is going to
Okay.
be right. We're talking a large scale project. You're going to have a lot of these metrics in here, but if it's just a very simple CUP for a daycare, I don't see ACHD. I mean, you're not going to need all of these comments in here. So we'll pick and choose, and so will the other departments pick and choose what they think's important and relevant to be included as part of the staff report. So they won't always have all of these metrics. This is kind of the big picture, the bigger projects. This is the worst case scenario, I guess. I hate to say that, but this is something you can anticipate with a more complex, larger scale project. For example, a school district, the Hawaii High School project, you would have a lot of these metrics. Again, something for a CUP or a drive-through daycare, you're not going to get half of these comments in there. It's just not relevant. It doesn't relate to something that scale.
Thank you. So is that everything for this evening? Did you want to ask about the?
Yeah, I had a couple more items for you. So if you recall, last commission hearing, I asked you about the APA website, and if you guys had interest in us continuing that membership for you. Caleb has tasked me with that, so I was just wondering if any of you had a chance to log on, look through that. That's really a resource for you to help you do your job better as commissioners. You don't get an APA membership or log on like a staff member would. It's basically you have access to the website, tools and resources to help you do your job as a commission. If you guys haven't been there, haven't used it, don't find value in it, I'm share that information with Caleb and see if we discontinue the membership. But if you feel like it does add value and helps you do your job better, then certainly we'll continue that annual membership for you. Has anyone had a chance to get on there and look at it, or any input on that so I can report back to Caleb on it, the division manager?
No.
I have not had a chance.
I have not.
But I would like to.
I was gonna say, I looked at it, the magazine that I had, and it didn't have my name on the one that I'd gotten handed, so I didn't try to log into it, but I like the idea of the resource. I don't know that I've utilized it or looked into how to get into it yet either. That's a very big answer, sorry.
To be clear, it's my understanding that it's $575 a year for us to have access. It's a separate fee for the planner, so it's not one and the same. They are paying for just us, and it's a separate cost or invoice. So.
It's a perk of the job, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that $500 each?
No.
Well, it's $570 for all
of us.
Yes.
Okay.
If it's something you want us to continue to do, just tell us, continue paying the dues, and we'll continue to pay. That's simple. I hate to take away a resource that could provide you some value.
I personally think the $575 is not that expensive to have a potential resource if we need it. Yeah. Personally.
Keep it.
Right.
I do flip through the magazines when they pass them out.
It's nice to see trends, and that way, a lot of times as developers come up here, maybe you see something in that magazine or you've read something, an article, and you're like, wow, why don't you do this or incorporate this, or maybe have you thought about this? It helps spur those conversations and those ideas as you're deliberating on projects up there at the podium. So I think, again, I find it to be a valuable resource, but I'm a planner and I'm a certified planner, so I have to go, and I use the website quite a bit, but I think, again, it does provide value for you as well. So I'll go ahead and communicate to Caleb to go ahead and continue membership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then one last item before we end this evening is I just wanted to make the commission aware that on September 15th, the City Planning Department will be hosting comp plan update at the block party in Kleiner Park. We're looking for volunteers. Myself and Brian McClure are currently signed up to facilitate that event, but wanted to extend the offer to any of the commission that may want to come down on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon and assist, communicate kind of the vision to the community and partake in that process. So if any of you are interested, I would ask that you just send me an email, say maybe by end of next week, so that I can, or at least by Wednesday next week, so that way I can communicate that to Brian and myself and get you on the list to come and join us.
And that's to sit at the comp plan booth?
That is correct, yep. That's kind of our public outreach as part of phase 1 of the comp plan update.
Okay. Is that everything?
That's all I have, unless you have any other questions of me.
Madam
We
Chair.
have a motion.
Actually, one quick question.
Okay.
Have we started looking at future land use out along this State Highway 16 corridor? You know, with that corridor coming in, you know, have we gone back to that area and looked at what do we see to that future land use map? You know, because I think, you know, the high school was one particular. You know, it's right at an interchange. You know, I think that land use, what we thought, you know, when it was first done, have we actually started looking at that to decide what we think that land use might be?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we haven't gotten to that level yet, but that will be part of the discussion as we move into the next phases.
Okay.
And I think this commission will have some input on that as well. I know when Caleb, at one time, the city, kind of that 4 square mile, we were entertaining doing a comp plan amendment and changing, looking at the future land use amendment at some point. Commission had asked us to postpone that and just roll that review as part of this entire comp plan update. So that's why I know it's on the agenda or part of this current effort that we're undertaking right now.
Nope, I think that sounds good.
Who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner
I move we
Yearsley.
adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn the Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission hearing for September 6, 2018. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.